Locks DFS MLB breakdown, breaking down this 6-game MLB slate. I am Christian Hardy at ByHardy on Twitter. You can find me there tweeting about sports, all sorts of different things at ByHardy on Twitter. Before we get into the video, I'm going to announce the winner of last week's giveaway, which is Greg Ball. He commented on every daily video last week, giving kind of some of his favorite plays. Gave a good comment about the new website. We appreciate that. Greg Ball, DM me, DM Addy, DM Locks DFS, whatever you want to do, and we'll get you set up. Also wanted to talk about our website real quick. I don't think we've given you guys a full look at kind of what we do on a daily basis, but here's the lock sheet that we do. Yellow, you see the players kind of different colors on the players. The yellow means cash play, the blue means a GPP play, and the green is a value play. If you see these prices highlighted red, those are the locks. We do pick different locks for both the websites. You know, occasionally like a Mike Trout in a nut situation, and you just play them on both sites. But we also add ratings A through D. Very rarely you get a D on there, but as well as the matchup and basically a quick analysis of the matchup and why we think they're in play on that day. That's all on the lock sheet. Also, we've added to the new website, if you remember over here, basically our top stacks of the slate. Addy usually does his top stacks and breaks down the pitchers and the guys he's targeting. And I do a kind of a first look, which is a statistical breakdown of the bullpens on the slate, the bullpens, the top hitting teams over the last few weeks. Lots of other statistics I use to go through, and I break them down for you guys, as well as you'll get access to our member Slack chat, which is where you can ask us questions about any of the sort of things that you are looking at a slate, and we're more than willing to talk about our opinions on those things and help you guys come to the best team that you possibly can. That is our goal, to build better lineups at Locks DFS. So, okay, let's get into the breakdown now. I really do like this 6-game slate that we've got. We're going to start with the pitching, which top of the list here, we've got Robbie Ray at 10K. Robbie Ray, 4.18 xFIP to right-handed bats and a 2.25 xFIP to left-handed bats. He's going to be taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates, 3.9 run total. The game total has jumped a full run, and we haven't seen the Pirates bump up much. They've gone from 3, I believe, 7 to 3.9, if I remember right. Meanwhile, the Diamondbacks have jumped from like 4.8 to 5.2. I don't think the math is right there, but you get the point. Basically, Ray has a really good matchup here because the Pirates team that really struggles versus righties, versus left-handed pitchers. Sorry, Robbie Ray. Which Robbie Ray is. Ray's K'ing over 11 to both sides. I mean, Ray's always had great K stuff. He's got an 11% swinging strike rate to righties, 13% to lefties. Of course, Ray has always had some hard contact issues to right-handed bats, but there aren't a lot of power that I'm too scared of in this lineup. Josh Bell, of course, brings a lot of power, but when we're talking about it versus righties, as you can see over the last year, he does, or versus lefties, he as a switch hitter, he does not have nearly as much power. Still is a solid hitter, obviously not nearly worth the 5K price tag when he's facing a lefty. And even Marte, he actually does add more power and more contact versus right-handed pitching. So Ray really does a great matchup here. Pirates are 26th versus a fastball in the league, 22nd versus a slider. Those are two of Ray's best pitches that he uses quite a bit. He does use another pitch as well that I believe is he throws that curveball a little bit as well. That's a little bit of a strikeout pitch for him. So worth taking into consideration. But Pirates league worst in WRC plus, weighted runs created plus, versus left-handed pitching this year, 28.4% K rate and under 100 ISO, which is terrible. So big fan of Robbie Ray today. I definitely think he's a top option on the slate. He's the guy that I will have in my lineup as my SP1, almost guaranteed at this point. So definitely look at Robbie Ray, getting him into your lineups. There are a few other SP2 options, a guy I'm going to talk about on the podcast, however, or if you want to hear all of them, you can go to listen to the podcast on YouTube, on iTunes. But the other guy that I am really considering is going to be Shane Bieber at 9K versus the Chicago White Sox. So we ended up getting quite a few lefties in this lineup for the White Sox. Bieber does have some contact issues with lefties a little bit. I didn't write them down, but he does. He has a higher xFIP and higher hard hit to lefties a little bit. So that's a little bit worrying for Bieber. But at the same time, White Sox, 3.9 team total. They have the highest K rate over the last 2 weeks at 28.5. And versus right-handed pitching this year, they are K'ing at 26%, which is 5th worst in the league, I believe. Like I said, some scary lefties. Moncada hits righties better. Yonder Alonso adds quite a bit of power versus righties. But overall, like Charlie Tilson strikes out a ton. Even Moncada strikes out a lot. Really, the main point I think with Bieber is that we're going to get him at over 100 pitches against a team that strikes out a lot. A team that does not hit any pitch particularly well when I'm looking at the pitch type data. And Bieber has an absurd 32% K rate versus righties this year, and he still gets an 11.6% swinging strike rate on the year. We're going to get him at, like I said, over 100 pitches against this lineup. And really, on this White Sox lineup, no one besides Abreu or Alonso is K'ing under 25% this year. Under 25% of their ABs is not handedness. So I think there's going to be plenty of lineups in this, plenty of strikeouts in this lineup for Bieber. Not worried at all about the upside here. Other guys I'm considering, just to real quickly touch on them, will be Yusei Kikuchi, although he is getting some movement against him. He is cheap and he is a little bit interesting to me. And I also have some interest in Brad Peacock, although this lineup for the Tigers came out as expected and is a pretty good lineup with Kristen Stewart back. They've and Jamer batting down here is 6th. It's a pretty solid lineup. Very slowly. The Diamondbacks. They have the highest team total on the slate now at 5.2 runs. It's moving up, trending up. The roof at Chase Field is going to be open. That's going to help. But let's talk about Nick Kingham. Nick Kingham has serious issues versus left-handed bats going back to last year. 6.89 xFIP and 2.84 home run per 9. With a 45% fly ball hit, 45% hard hit rate to lefties this year. You see the Diamondbacks lineup right here. Gerard Dyson, Eduardo Escobar, David Peralta, Ketel Marte. All of those are lefties. We could see them throw another lefty in there somewhere. That said, I do like that Escobar price at 3.7. Especially love that Gerard Dyson price at 2.8. I mean, he's basically a free square on FanDuel. At least wanted to mention that. But if we're looking on DraftKings, I have some interest in David Peralta probably as my favorite Diamondbacks bat, even though he's 5.1K. He has a 265 ISO and a 151 WRC plus versus right-handed pitchers this year. Again, the roof's open. He's going to help fly balls. I also like Eduardo Escobar, although both those guys are very expensive, tough to pay for, but they are in nut matchups against Kingham, who cannot get lefties out. And Eduardo Escobar, as you can see, switch hitter. He does hit righties better, adds more power versus righties, and he does have multi-position eligibility. So, but those lefties, very interesting, even though they are very expensive. After that, not going to talk too much about... Oh, I will, actually. I'll talk about one more stack, and that's going to be the Indians going up against Renato Lopez at a 4.7 run total. I am a little bit surprised that we haven't seen this run total jump. Probably a indication of the way the Indians have been hitting the ball. They haven't been hitting the ball well. They're actually bottom 5 in WRC plus, I believe, over the last 2 weeks. Even with Lindor back and everything, it's just not going well for these guys. That said, the prices are low. Renato Lopez is not good. Let's get into the numbers on Renato Lopez. 44% fly ball rate, 38% hard hit rate to left-handed bats with a 6.44 xFIP. Really struggles versus lefties. As you can see, he's going to be facing 8 of them. He's going to be facing 8 lefties. And that is where Renato Lopez really struggles. You know, he can face these teams of full righties and he can get some strikeouts, actually. He even has some upside. We saw that against the Tigers this year. This is not going to be the case here. The Indians are going to get the bat on the ball here. Lopez just doesn't have K stuff versus lefties at all. I believe the K rate drops under like 18% against lefties, if I remember correctly. Of course, like Joe Ram has been struggling this year. He's actually going to be my favorite play on this team at 4.3K against Renato Lopez. I don't know what's wrong with Joe Ram. I do know Joe Ram. I do know, I always say Joe Ram. I do know that he is still making contact with the ball. He's not striking out more. He has similar hard hit rates to last year. He has similar fly ball rates to last year. He has a 4.3K price tag. It's very, very low for a guy who absolutely mashed the ball last year, who is getting similar contact rates this year. He hits righties and lefties about the same. He hits righties actually, never mind. He hits righties actually quite a bit better for a lot more power. This is a solid ballpark for him to be playing in, and pretty much a middle of the pack ballpark in Chicago. But at that price, I've got interest. It's one thing for his BABIP to be low, like in the 275 range or something like that. But no, his BABIP versus righties is all the way down at like 209. 202 versus righties this year. It's just not going to stay there. It's just not going to happen. This is a perfect matchup for it to regress back to a better level. Get on the right track, with that. Definitely have some interest in Kipnis. Doesn't add a lot of power, but he is 3.6K at a position where there's not a ton of spots to pay up on this slate, in my opinion. Francisco Lindor at 4.7K is a little bit too cheap if we're talking about combining last year's and this year's numbers. And Carlos Santana adds a ton of power versus righties this year as well. You've got Carlos Gonzalez and Jake Bauers who add a little bit more power versus righties and are very cheap on DraftKings. So we'll kind of have to see how those guys all line up at the bottom here. Last guy is, if you're looking for a catcher punt, we could see Roberto Perez in here. We could see Kevin Plawecki. Either one makes sense if you're trying to spend down at catcher, but I do think I'll probably go elsewhere in cash. So yeah, very interested in Indians. And then the last guy I want to talk about, just kind of a one-off play, but I do think this whole Phillies team is pretty cheap. Freddy Peralta, 48% fly ball rate, 41% hard contact rate versus lefties. He's also got pretty similar contact rates against righties. He's getting a small ballpark here. It is going to be decently cold, 50%. I mean, or 50 degrees in kind of the range of like just a game. Reese is priced appropriately at 5.4. He's probably more of a GBP play at that price, but he does have lots of righty power against Peralta's bad contact versus righties. JT Real Muto is probably my favorite catcher in cash at 4.1K. That price is down as well. All these guys are priced so far down against Freddy Peralta, who doesn't really have a lot of strikeout stuff, doesn't really miss a lot of bats, gets a bad ballpark here, and gets a 4.8 run total as well. Very interested in all these guys. I definitely think Harper one-off makes the most sense. 4.4K for Bryce Harper. It's just like, what's going on there? Would love to see his numbers over. Yeah, versus righties over the last year. 364 WOBA, 214 ISO. Obviously, he's got some base running ability as well. Definitely have interest in these Phillies, and I expect Bryce Harper to be in my cash build. We'll see how that goes. But definitely have lots of interest in Bryce Harper against Freddy Peralta's terrible contact rates, and you can stack it up with a 3-5 stack or a 2-3 or a 1-3, whatever you want to do. Definitely fine with getting more than one Philly in my lineup today. So, with all that said, let's kind of get let's do some home run calls. I'm actually going to keep mine the same from the podcast last night. So if you haven't seen the podcast, you can hear a little bit more of the breakdown of the slate. We go game by game today, so this is just the spot that makes so much sense for him to get back on track, and that BABIP is not going to stay that low. It's just not going to happen. 2.02 is just a ridiculously low BABIP for a guy who's hitting the ball this well. It's just not going to stay there. So Jose Ramirez, have a lot of interest in. He's going to be my home run call number one on the slate. And I'm going to stay on the same team, actually, for my under 4K home run call. And I'm just going to keep picking on Renato Lopez versus lefties. And it's going to be Carlos Gonzalez, who does add, I believe, like a 175 ISO versus righties. Doesn't strike out too much. Real interest. When I'm thinking about these home run calls, I'm looking for a guy who's going to make contact with the ball 3 times. I would love to see them not strike out. It gives me 3 chances for them to put the ball in the air, maybe get it out of the park. I do think Joe Ram and Carlos Gonzalez have good chances to do that today. Although Joe Ram does strike out at like 15% versus righty or something like that. So not too concerning. Those are my 2 guys that I am going to make my home run calls. Over 4K, under 4K. I also like Christian Stewart, actually, as another under 4K call. That was Addy's home run call on the podcast if you want to check it out. Okay, that all said, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to comment and subscribe. You'll have a chance to win a free pass next week, as we just gave away our free pass to Greg Ball at the beginning of this video. Check out locksdfs.com for our top stacks, our lock sheet, cash plays, etc., etc., etc. If you have any questions about our subscriptions, at Locks DFS on Twitter, at ByHardy on Twitter, wherever you want to reach us at. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you guys tomorrow. Peace.